start.
Great.
That's cool. So, hey, everybody, I'm Charles Shapiro. I'm the President of World Affairs Council of Atlanta. Just in case you're on the wrong Zoom meeting, there's a lot of them going on at the same time. Our guest today is Ed Martinez, who is the President of the UPS Foundation and the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer of UPS Corporation. Our topics is on how UPS, both the corporation and the foundation, are responding to COVID-19. The UPS Foundation invests in 4,300 organizations and communities in 170 countries, at least that's what your website says. I assume it's still true. And in full disclosure, I've got to make sure everybody knows that we are one of those organizations that receives funding from the UPS Foundation. We are proudly one of those organizations. So I want to thank you, Ed, and thank UPS and the UPS Foundation for your support. As Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, I mean, Ed's got two huge jobs because UPS has got 495,000 employees that he's got to worry about, take care of, make sure that doing everything he can to increase diversity and inclusion. And if there's anyone on this conversation who doesn't know UPS, I mean, you don't know that brown truck coming around to your house. They deliver 5.5 billion packages a year, and in 2019 generated $74 billion in revenue. So that's pretty damn cool. And so you've got people all over the world, Ed, working on this. I'm going to start with one personal question. What was your first job at UPS?
Well, I was a package unloader at 16 years of age in Miami, Florida. And I worked at night and went to my high school during the day. I worked from 5 o'clock in the afternoon to 10 o'clock at night.
Wow. When did you do homework? I guess you didn't.
I did it throughout.
Okay.
Throughout the day.
So how many years does that give you with UPS?
44 years.
Gee. Wow.
44.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so let's get down to COVID. That's what we're here to talk about. I mean, you've got regional hubs in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Shanghai. Mm-hmm. When did UPS first start to hear about this, first be concerned about it? When was the first meeting that y'all called to talk about COVID?
Yeah, well, Charles, before I address that, I think it's very important that I recognize your leadership, the World Affairs Council, and really everyone that's joined this call, because these are, without a doubt, probably the most extraordinary time that we are facing and enduring in our generation. And I think it's more important than ever that institutions such as yours, that leaders such as you, and those on this call really come together and really reflect on what's happening and have these kind of important conversations. So I want to commend you for that. I want to commend everyone that's on this call for taking the time to really have this discussion. And most importantly, I also think that it's always, and this is the way I start out all these conversations these days, is a reflection on the importance and the work of all of our first responders, our doctors, our nurses, our EMTs, our police, our fire, first responders, and really our UPSers and other delivery companies that are keeping us going, that are keeping life going. And I think it's important that, that everyone reflects and understands that those that have unfortunately succumbed to COVID, that they are also in our thoughts and prayers, and their families are in our thoughts and prayers, and that we strongly believe that when we come out of this on the other side, that we'll be a more cohesive global society, that we'll be able to take this as learnings and really understand how we need to better position ourselves for the future. So I just wanted to make that point. And with that, I also want to show the cover of National Review magazine for this month. And it's really a reflection again on those first responders in a commemoration of raising the flag in Iwo Jima. As you can see, we're very proud to see a UPS driver shown there, along with first responders, doctors and nurses, and all those in the medical community.
I mean, that's a cool recognition of how essential, you know, when you think of what are essential businesses, right? What's the essential, I mean, really the infrastructure that keeps this country going. You're part of it, and not just this country, but around the world.
Well, and I know we'll talk about it later, but you know, one of the key focus areas for the UPS Foundation is humanitarian relief and resilience all over the world. It's about preparing, responding, and helping communities recover from sudden onset disasters, from shock, and what they call quiet emergencies. And certainly the company is about connecting people and communities and bringing inclusion and commerce. And so when we have a situation like this, and the reason why we focus in those areas, because unless you have a resilient, a strong supply chain, your community is not going to be resilient and is not going to be able to withstand shocks like these to our system. So that gets us into why we focus on these things, because supply chain, in point of fact, is extremely important to sustain life.
Cool, that's great. All right, so now let's go back. Let's dig in a little bit.
So let's go back to
when did y'all first? When did I mean? You've got employees in China, right? I assume you got employees in Wuhan.
Yes.
When did y'all first start hearing about this?
Well,
December, January?
We have continued operating in China throughout the period. We worked very, very closely with the Chinese government. We adjusted operating plans accordingly. We made sure that our people were protected, had everything that they need in order to execute their job, but we really worked throughout.
Mm-hmm. But when did you, I mean, everybody I hope knows that your headquarters in Sandy Springs. I mean, when did headquarters first start thinking, man, this is something we got to plan for. We've got to pull out the emergency plan.
You know, I will tell you that the UPS Foundation began organizing shipments into China in early to mid-January. So we were working with great partners that actually are based here in Atlanta, MAP International and MedShare, and we were actually shipping PPEs to China in January. So that gives you a feel for how close we are to you know, various activities that are occurring all over the world.
Cool. So how has this affected your business, both for good and for ill? I mean, as China stops producing, there's less material to ship out. Other countries have gone through that as economies have slowed down, and now China's factories are starting to resume operation. I mean, that has to impact you and your fleet of airplanes and all the people with the trucks all over the world.
Well, you know, as we started out talking about, you know, UPS is critical. It has been, you know, identified as a critical business infrastructure company. So we've kept operations going. The beauty of our global network is that we can adjust our network and move flows of packages and freight all over the world. And so we've continued business. And quite frankly, the mix of packages, of course, we're shipping a lot of personal protective equipment all over the world. As I started out talking about, we were shipping PPEs into China in January and February, and now we're shipping massive amounts of PPEs out of China to the US and throughout Europe. We have been able to remain very agile, very nimble in adjusting our operating plans And most importantly, I can't say it enough because I continue to wear a brown shirt. Our people are flexible. They're leaders. They're out there doing what they need to do to make sure that communities are fed and that people have what they need to protect themselves. And so we've continued working very, very hard. And thank goodness, our business has kept going strong.
What steps have you taken to, whether it's pilots or drivers or people in the distribution centers? I mean, how do you protect them?
Well, that's our, of course, UPS has an incredible tradition of the health and safety of UPSers. And I can say that because I've been working for the company for almost 50 years. So I can tell you that any decision that's made by UPS at any day, any time, the first consideration is our people. So in a crisis like this, of course, the safety, hand sanitizers, PPEs, making sure that we adjust operating plans accordingly, making sure that our equipment is clean and our facilities, we've up-ramped the hygiene of our facilities is all in place. We've even adjusted the way we deliver packages. Right now, we're not requiring a signature, and
right.
so that to avoid contact. But as important, and I know we'll talk about this as well, is our connection to the community. So our communities tell us a lot of information that we need in order to better operate.
Sure.
Our connection to the government, whether it be local government, whether it be the federal and state governments. So we have an extremely effective public affairs organization that's led by my good friend and partner, Laura Lane. And that group has been instrumental in making sure that we understand how to protect our people, that we understand how to operate effectively in communities. And really, quite frankly, it's all over the world because communities are all in different stages in this country. And just look at the landscape of the world, and we're operating all over the world. And so we have to stay connected to what's happening in those communities. And we have to remain agile to be able to adjust to it.
Have there been particular challenges? I mean, I'm just, obviously I'm not a supply chain professional, but delivering to nursing homes, retirement communities, I mean, are there areas that are so dangerous or that you've had to take particular precautions?
Well, here again,
or innovation.
Here again, as an essential provider, we are working with local communities, local agencies to make sure that we protect our people, but by the same token, deliver what those communities needs in order to survive. I will say that we have launched a drone airline, and we are launching in May a partnership with CVS in a community in Florida where we're going to be utilizing Matternet M2 drones to deliver medicines in that community. Now, this community is a community of 125,000 people. It's a retirement community, and so we're going to begin in that partnership in May delivering medicines. So innovation, planning ahead, it has been a cornerstone of UPS. That's the way we plan our business, in terms of always having contingency plans, whether it's weather or otherwise. We have to maintain a focus on staying ahead of those type of events so that we can adjust accordingly.
As countries have shut down and then begin to open up, I mean, have shipments increased? Have they gone back to the levels they were prior to this, to the COVID pandemic?
I think we're seeing, again, the world is a big landscape. So, our volume around the world is changing, but it remains strong. It remains stout, as we say.
Okay. In one of his Rose Garden press conferences, the president read a list of CEOs, including David Abney, the CEO of UPS. How is UPS cooperating with Vice President Pence and his team?
Well, we greatly appreciate the recognition from the White House and from Vice President Pence. David Abney was named to the task force, and essentially one of the centerpieces of that partnership, a significant one, is our partnership with FEMA, and we have created an air bridge with FEMA that is now transporting PPEs into the United States. As for instance, one of the gateways is Asia, is China. We've added 200 flights that are essentially bringing millions of PPE equipment into the United States, and that's one of the features from that appointment by the administration of David Abney and the company. From there, I mean, we're transporting a number of different type of PPEs with great companies like 3M and Cardinal and Henry Schein. That's what's important, and hopefully we'll touch upon that as the UPS Foundation approaches these kind of potential crisis in that pillar around preparedness, strong public-private partnerships, not when a disaster occurs, but having these standby agreements among companies, among United Nations agencies, among NGOs, among nonprofits and government are so important. While you can never, and obviously we're learning every day from this crisis, you can never anticipate everything. So you can never pre-position exactly what you need or take plans further to what is actually happening. You can never anticipate those things. Having these very important relationships and partnerships, and most importantly, credibility with government is very important to a company like UPS.
So tell me more about what the foundation is doing. I mean, you're famous when there's a natural disaster, getting supplies in quickly. I mean, this is beyond the scope of a natural disaster. Obviously, it's a pandemic and it's affecting not at the same time, but the entire world. I mean, what sorts of things? Give us some examples of what y'all are doing.
Well, we're all very, very proud of our partners in this program. Our work in this area really began post the Southeast Asia tsunami in Banda Aceh, which goes back many years. But we learned from that incident how important supply chains are. And we talked about that earlier, to survival. And that's what really motivated us to not only be there to respond, but also understand how companies like ours can help communities better prepare and in fact become more resilient communities. So when we fast forward to today, we were heavily involved with the Ebola outbreak in West Africa 6 years ago. And we understood there that it's not just about a natural disaster, but it's also about strengthening public health systems. So that last mile delivery, as vexing as it could be in a natural disaster, it's challenges that communities in emerging markets face every single day. And we confronted that challenge during the Ebola crisis. And so we began participating in various coalitions around pandemic preparedness. I mean, we have been actually focused with a number of coalitions. Some of them include the Private Sector Roundtable that's connected to the Global Health Security Agenda. We have, and I personally participate in a number of these committees by the World Economic Forum and a number of other organizations that have been focused on pandemic preparedness. We have a couple of hundred epidemics every year around the world. And so that is an issue that, the public and private sector needs to be sensitive to. So our work really on this crisis really began many years ago, establishing these relationships with FEMA, the World Health Organization, the World Food Program, and private sector companies, great customers of ours like Henry Schein and Cardinal and others, having this dialogue on how can we react better? Where are the supply chains? Where are the PPEs being manufactured? How quick can we ramp up a vaccine? What do the vaccine stockpiles look like? I mean, these are things that we began talking about and have been talking about for many years. So that's the preparedness side of the equation. Now, when the crisis broke out, the foundation, again, with a specific list of organizations that have operations throughout the world. So we partner with about 15 organizations. 5 or 6 of them are United Nations agencies like the World Food Program, the UN High Commission for Refugees, UNICEF, UN OCHA. Then we partner with the International Federation of the Red Cross, the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, MedShare, MAP International. So these are all partnerships where we don't just come together when there's a crisis. We have ongoing dialogue and ongoing operations, because one thing is for sure, unfortunately, a community is in crisis every day somewhere around the world.
Sure.
And so, our position has always been, if we can help, we're going to help. And whether it be flying in or transporting tents or developing technology to track nutrition to refugee beneficiaries. And so that whole operation really began many years ago in the run-up to what happened in January. And then it was just a question of just activating these partnership, understanding, where are the pinch points that we can help with.
Is there actually somewhere in UPS, maybe in your office, a pandemic crisis management plan based on these conversations you've been having through the World Economic Forum and these UN agencies? And you just take it down off the shelf and there's a checklist on day 1, do this, day 5, do that?
As I said earlier, a centerpiece of UPS is our continuity planning. I mean, we are constantly planning our next move and the what ifs underneath that. So, we have, various groups within UPS that obviously are dedicated to that business continuity planning, the crisis management, all of those that keep the enterprise going are in place and are constantly in motion, because as I said, we operate in over 220 countries and territories. There is unfortunately something happening somewhere in the world every single day. And it could be, a bad weather storm, or it could be civil strife, or it could be something else. So that is sort of the nature of our business if we want to continue to be the most efficient company in the world with respect to transportation, supply chain, and logistics. On the other side, on what the foundation does is, yes, we are constantly working with our partners. And I want to say another, because I think it's very important at this point becomes clear as well, is that no company can do it alone. No government can do it alone, and we're seeing that. And so it's very important that that public and private sector partnerships, are created, and hopefully, unfortunately, out of this crisis, that's one key point. I participate on a call every other week, World Economic Forum. You have 800 companies that come together from all over the world and try to discuss how we can help each other. And I think that's extremely important. And so for the foundation, we are as much learning from our partners than we are also sharing our expertise.
So give me I'm going to dig in a little bit here. I mean, a number of, you see all these articles in the press, and one of the things people are predicting is that there'll be, I mean, really severe food shortages around the world, particularly in developing countries. What sorts of things are you doing with the World Food Program, with WFP? I mean, so they call you up and they say, hey, could you help us move this from point A to point B? Or give me some examples if you can.
Sure. Well, some of the little known facts about the World Food Program is, for them, it's not just about food and nutrition. The World Food Program is the head logistics provider for all the United Nations agencies. And the reasoning behind that is, yes, over so many decades of delivering foods in the emerging markets around the world, they have developed a tremendous expertise in logistics and supply chain. And so our work together has really been centered around supply chain and logistics, not necessarily food, but they help deliver vaccines and medicines for UNICEF or other UN agencies. So our work with them is really helping them deliver on their promise to their colleagues within the UN systems and beyond. And so some of the work that we're doing with them includes really mapping out supply chains all over the world so that they don't have all the capacity that's needed. They also rely on public-private partnerships like that one that we have. And so we map out those supply chains and work together. Could be multimodal, could be by ship, by air, by ground, trucks. And so that's one of the key, operations that we have with them fairly regularly. I will tell you, with respect to how we're viewing the global landscape right now, there is emphasis on protecting emerging markets, protecting Africa. Africa has, different, levels of vulnerability in their healthcare systems. So that has been a topic of concern with our partners, with our UN partners, with our partners that really have been investing for a number of years in Africa around vaccine distribution and the vaccination of the population. And we want to make sure that all of that great work continues to be protected. So we are working with UNHCR and the World Food Program. We're focused on Cameroon and just making sure that we can help protect them if the outbreak accelerates there.
Okay, I've got one more question, then we're going to go to questions from the audience. And let me remind the audience, if you've got a question, please use your chat function. Send your question to Fernanda Lucchine, who you'll see in the upper right-hand side of your screen when you click on chat, and send her the questions so she can combine them and shorten them and send them to me. But I got a budgetary question for you. If you're going to use your supply chain to ship food or vaccines to Cameroon, do you have to move money from the UPS Foundation to UPS Air to pay for that, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, that just depends on the mission. Certainly, it's in many times the shipping is done by UPS equipment. Other times, we partner with organizations that can help us fly the necessary commodities into these countries. So it just depends on how the operation is managed.
Okay. So here's a question from Ashley Perry. What do you think is the best way to help to help locally? Financial contributions, donating food, making masks? I mean, from your perspective, what works best?
I think first and foremost, what works best is to assure that you're safe, that whoever wants to help does so in a way that's responsible, that safeguards their own safety, the safety of those loved ones around them. And I do think that anything that one can do to help is something that's going to be well received by our communities. It's hard to say. We have UPS volunteers right now that are volunteering virtually, that are doing tutoring over the virtual networks, and that's an area that we did not get an opportunity to discuss, is how we help communities at the grassroots level. So when you started out, Charles, you said that we support about 4,300 organizations around the world each year, but many of those organizations are supported by local UPS business units in their local community. I've talked about the World Food Program and UNICEF and the American Red Cross. These are national and global partners that the foundation works with. But part of our approach to community support is that the foundation works with UPSers at the local business unit level, and they engaged with locally based communities. And that's what's happening right now. And the foundation made a major multi-million-dollar commitment to help fund these UPS business units in their local communities. And so that's where we're in the process right now. And while the foundation has specific focus areas that really play to our strengths, like humanitarian relief and resilience, we know that today what communities are in need of is there's issues around food security, there are issues around education, because you have many students at home. There are issues around healthcare. There are issues around sustaining our civil society partners. So, my suggestion would be to, follow your passions, reach out to those organizations in your local community, and just find out how you can help, whether it be funding, whether it be virtual volunteerism, whether it be something that you do at home. But again, I think it's wonderful that you're thinking that way, and everybody needs to pitch in.
So here's another question. Is this pandemic has both a health aspect and obviously a gigantic economic aspect. What do you see in its wake as the next crisis that's coming? Is it going to be a giant food shortage? Is it going to be poverty in countries that are unable to go to the markets and borrow money? What comes next? What are you planning on when you look ahead 6 months and a year from now for the UPS Foundation?
And this is my opinion. I'm an optimist. I'm not, I'm not thinking in those terms. As I said, this is a unprecedented crisis, but we manage through crisis every year, and we always come out the other end stronger as a community, as a global society. I'm not focused that way personally. I think that we are going to, make corrections. I think this is going to be a learning process for us as individuals, for the business community, for the public community, for civil society, and we're going to come out stronger the other end. And that's been my focus, and doing every day what we can to get us there faster.
Mm-hmm. That's great. What is UPS Foundation doing to help our frontline healthcare workers in the United States, not just in the United States, but around the world? I mean, the doctors and nurses, the EMTs, the people are out there, and I guess that includes UPS drivers as well. I mean, what sort of things can you do to help those individuals?
Well, I'll tell you that there's no better example of sort of the collaboration and the reason why the company and the UPS Foundation is so focused on this humanitarian relief and resilience than what we're going through right now. So, you know, I mentioned that we started out early in this process in January. You know, we were involved in the shipping of over 5 million PPEs in coordination with MedShare and MAP International. So everything the foundation does, they do so in coordination with great civil society partners. But what's been really special about this is, you know, how the company, through its partnerships, through its credibility, has, you know, partnered and created this air bridge with FEMA that's essentially transported over 10 million PPEs all over the world. That's enough to fill 14 Boeing 747s. And I will tell you that I'm on calls every single day that is facilitating the distribution of PPEs, you know, all over the world. But I'll tell you, I'll give you just, you know, one special story that that I participated in this past Monday, and it's one of our distribution and freight forwarding employees that she lives in New Jersey, and she's been operating and working out of her home. Unfortunately, her husband was furloughed, and she wanted to find out how she could help. This is a UPSer. And so she went out and she bought 3D printers. And her husband and her have been essentially making masks, the plastic shield mask, from 3D printers and distributing to hospitals in New Jersey and New York. And so that just touched me. You know, they were distributing and making 500 shield masks every day, and she was featured on a call that I was on. But that just gives you an example of the level of commitment on behalf of my company, and I will say many other companies are doing their part. So my hat's off to them. But you know, our commitment is from the heart. It's from the leadership to the front line.
That's great. This is terrific. Tell me about a shift here. I mean, when you have a crisis like this, it stresses societies, it stresses companies, it finds the fault lines and the everything that you've set up that you think is going to work. It certainly is stressing revenue, income for lots of people. Can you talk about leadership in this time of crisis? I mean, what is that like, and what's it been like within UPS?
Well, you know, I think that in many ways, in the way we run our business, in the way we comport ourselves as individuals, and in the way that we confront points like this in time, it really stems back to our values. And so it's important to us to really stay true to those values, and that's where we find our strength, to always do the right thing, to always keep our people first, our communities, our customers, our business partners. And so I think that the strength of our leadership really stems from our values. That's
great. Jeremy Cole, who is I don't know his exact title, I think he's the Executive Director of UNICEF Southeast, asked, can you talk a little bit about the concerns you have with partners in terms of how this pandemic might affect the developing world in the months ahead?
Well, first of all, I want to say hello to my great partner, Jeremy. And as I mentioned earlier, UNICEF is one of those dear partners of ours that, you know, we've had a partnership with for almost 30 years. And again, you know, our partnership is not episodic. It's a partnership that, you know, we're probably on the phone with Jeremy a few times a week. And Henrietta Fore, who is the Executive Director of UNICEF within the UN,
And who's an old friend of mine. I worked with her on
she?
two different occasions at the State Department. I think she's tremendous.
Well, wonderful lady, wonderful leader. We have been in communication with her, and I can tell you that I have made personal contact and remain personally engaged with the leaders, of all of our partners, whether it be Mark Morial, who's the president and CEO of the National Urban League, to Derek Johnson, who's the president and CEO of the NAACP, Henrietta Fore, and many others. So as to the question is, we need our civil society partners to continue to be able to work through this. There is a lot of stress on civil society organizations, nonprofits here in the U.S., NGOs, and so as I said earlier, part of our financial support at the local level is to keep these organizations in place, because just like you see businesses shuttering, civil society partners are also undergoing similar stress. And I will tell you that without our civil society partners, we would be in even more crisis, because they do provide that important work to our people in communities that are underserved. And one point that we didn't really get to, because as you can see, Charles, you and I can talk about this all day, but the one key point, this repeats itself, that has become evident in this crisis, is that the underserved members of our community are taking the brunt of this crisis. You see it time and time again. You saw it in Katrina. You see it in the Philippines during Haiyan. That the underserved members of our communities, in this case, whether it be loss of jobs and many other ways, are taking the brunt of it. And our civil society partners are very important in being able to sustain and lift these communities. And so, a long way to answer your question, Jeremy. We are constantly talking to you and many, many thousands of others on how we can help you continue to do what you do.
What I hear you saying, tell me if this is right, that it's your partners who are the people who are experts in whether it's health issues or food issues, who are directing you and telling you, and what you are the experts in logistics and supply chains. Mm-hmm. And so that you use them as the eyes and ears and the people who can see into the future, and you're supporting them in their efforts. Is that a fair summary?
No
that sounds
question.
Great.
No question. And, I will say that when you can connect to something that really inspires you, like this inspires us, the learning is both ways, right? So we learn from them, they learn from us, and it really reflects in the impact that we have in the community.
Well, I'm going to pick up on one of the things that you said, Ed, and that is, in countries where most economic activity, most individuals work in the informal sector, right? Where they're day laborers, where they're subsistence farmers, where they're people who are waiting on the corner to get a job or selling stuff in traffic jams around the world, which we've all seen. I mean, those are the people who if they don't work, they can't feed their families. Right. Those are the people who, don't have health insurance and health plans. Those are the people who, if they're told to quarantine and stay at home, they're in a lot of trouble during this pandemic. And that's just going to be a gigantic issue in our country and around the world. And that's going to be really tough, and it's going to count on organizations like the UPS Foundation, UNICEF, World Food Program, your partners that you deal with MAP International and others. And it's going to draw down and call on all of us to put our shoulder to the wheel and help get through this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. absolutely. But these are great institutions. We're all committed, and we're going to see it through.
Ed, I want to thank you. This has been a great 45 minutes. It's flown by. I want to thank you so much. I've got to do a little advertisement here. Everybody stay on and listen to what I got to say, because I want to tell you what we got coming up. We got 4 programs next week, 4 programs. On the 5th, we've got a program on climate change, from polar bears to peaches, with Professor Patricia Yeager at the University of Georgia, who's really going to talk about how climate change is affecting Georgia and affecting our farmers' ability to produce their crops. That's on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I think I've got the day right, May 6th, we've got the ambassador of the European Union to the United States, Ambassador Stavros Lambrinidis. We're going to celebrate Europe Day. Europe's had the Eurozone crisis, migration crisis, Brexit, and now the same thing we're going through with the global pandemic. It's straining EU unity, and that's what we're going to talk to Ambassador Lambrinidis about. Then on May 7th, we've got a program on financial planning, why it's different for women, with Meg DePalma, who's Regional Vice President for Prudential Financial. And then finally on Friday, we've got Dennis Lockhart, whom we all know so well, and who is on the board of the World Affairs Council. Dennis is the former CEO of the Atlanta Fed, and he's going to be talking about the future of the pandemic economy. So this is going to be great programs. It's going to be terrific. I want to thank all of you who followed us today. Those of you who are members of the World Affairs Council, thank you very much. Please renew your memberships. We need them. Upgrade your memberships. We need that. If you're not a member of the World Affairs Council, please join. If you'd like to help support these programs, please let us know. And I want to thank the UPS Foundation, which has brought this program to you in part with your support. Ed, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming into the office. I appreciate it. This has been great, and I hope you'll come back in a few months and give us an update.
Absolutely. Love to. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Ed.